Welcome to our episode of Final Fantasy Favorites. Today we're going to be talking about the newest set, Final Fantasy, and some of our favorite cards from this set of Final Fantasy. Say hi, Jude,
Howdy.
and say hi, Lucy.
Hello.
And we're going to just hop right into it, talk about some of our favorite cards from the set, where we think they might be good, and where we're interested in playing them. So I'm first. I chose this card, Realm Sketching. 2 blue blue. It's a sorcery. Create a token that's a copy of target artifact, creature, or land. Now I really like this card because it can hit basically all the types that you want to hit. Artifacts, there's always good artifact on the battlefield. Creatures are always awesome, especially in Commander. And lands, there's some powerful lands that people like to play in Commander.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's a good time. 4 mana copy anything practically. Artifact, creature, or land covers most of what you would want to get. Is pretty dang good rate. A clone that has multiple purposes is always appreciated. We'll never say no to hitting a good land or a rock off of this, but best case scenario, if you just get a creature that's worth 5 mana or more, you've already, gotten more than your bargain.
Yeah, I kind of feel like you want to have a plan when you put this in your deck. Like you want to be running, I don't know, like a Lotus Field or something that you can copy with it. Maybe not Lotus Field and specifically, but if you're just like banking on your opponents having something good worth stealing, I feel like or not stealing, but copying. I feel like there's better clone effects out there. But if
For
you
sure.
have cheaty stuff that you can do with it, then this gets a lot more interesting. And depending on your local meta, it might also be good. I kind of wish it could copy enchantments so that I could make other people suffer if they're going to run Rhystic Study, but that's a minor nitpick. So,
well, no, see, you can run Rhystic Study and then you just
and then I'll just win
play
the
your
game.
other
Yeah.
clones and then you copy your own Rhystic Study, and then you don't put any game changers into play, so you can tell people you're playing a bracket one.
Yeah, that's right.
All right.
Yeah, this is my bracket one deck themed around strong cards.
Yeah.
All right. Next is whose pick is this?
This is mine. So this is Emmett Selch Unsundered, and their flip side, Hades Sorcerer of Eld. And so I actually don't particularly care what the front size is on this card. So I want to play this in Commander, and let me tell you exactly what I want to do with this Commander. So many moons ago, I watched one Jonathan Suarez pilot a Draw New Lich Lord Storm deck on Star City Games' Commander videos. And for some reason since then, I've always had this idea of a blue-black Storm in Commander. I always have a soft spot for black-focused Storm in Commander. I used to run Crick with a Doomsday pile in Commander. And so to me, this is a very easy flip because 14 or more cards in a graveyard is not a big requirement in a format that gets to run Eternal playables. And then on the backside, what you get is that you essentially just have Yawgmoth's Will active. And that's awesome. I love the idea of getting to cast cards from my graveyard. Realistically, having it active for more than one turn isn't what you want to be doing in a deck like this. You could potentially use it to set up if you can get an easy flip and you don't have your ways to get there. But if you can mill, 14 or more cards into your graveyard and flip this, hopefully you've hit some kind of ritual effect, some kind of tutor effect, some kind of card draw effect, some kind of mana ramp of some kind. And I don't particularly care that it exiles after because because that's kind of the whole point. So you tell me a relatively easy flip in something like Commander gets me Yawgmoth's Will. I want to try it. I want to play it.
I will say I love Yawgmoth's Will. The fact that it says on the beginning of upkeep, it can only transform then, makes it a little fairer. But I still think it's.
Yep, you got to get it on once.
I still think it's fun to try out. especially since Yawgmoth's Will is such a popular and iconic card.
Yeah, and I'm
It
pretty
beats
sure.
the heck out of the downside of Draw New Lich Lord.
Yeah,
I'll
I
take
think
that.
Emmett Selch is also like a pretty popular character. I don't play Final Fantasy 14 like at all, but this is
Me
one
neither.
name I know from it because I have a lot of friends that play it, and it's one of the few names from Final Fantasy 14 that I can remember. I have problems with the names in the Final Fantasy franchise sometimes, but I'll yap about it later. This card looks very reasonable. I feel like it's going to be very popular both because it's a strong effect, appeals to longtime Magic players like yourself, Lucy, and also just people that really like this character. I think it's a little weird that it lets you play cards from your graveyard. Like you can get lands off this, which it feels
Yeah, why
weird.
not, right?
But yeah, it's a why not. So, also curious that it exiles your tokens. It feels like anti-aristocrats measure, but that's a weird clause to have on this card. But this looks pretty good.
It is a funky one. I'm imagining like what universe is this protecting? Like, is this protecting you from some weird Disciple of the Vault nonsense with like artifacts? Because
I mean,
let's be honest, if you're doing Blue Black Storm, we know it's ramping you.
I mean, it's also could be future proofing. To be fair, and then there's also Lotus Petal. Oh wait, that's a card.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's just a card. Yeah, it's a.
The
reason it exiles because all Yogg effects need to exile. Otherwise, they become even more broken than they already are. So.
All right, I think it's your turn, Jude.
Oh yeah, I picked Kefka, Court Mage. Kefka is a 5-mana Grixis legendary human wizard. He's a 4/5. When he enters or attacks, everyone gets to play a funny little game where each player discards a card, and then you draw a card for each card type among cards discarded this way. And you can pay 8 mana to force each opponent to sacrifice a permanent of their choice and then transform a Kefka into Kefka, Ruler of Ruin, a 5/7 flyer with whenever an opponent loses life during your turn, you draw that many cards. I haven't played a lot of Final Fantasies. The only one I've played is literally like one of the remakes for Final Fantasy 1 that they had on the Game Boy. So I don't really care about this franchise at all. However, Kefka's my boy. I love this guy, and I'm glad that his card is really cool. I like that he does a little mini game when he enters, and his backside will. I don't think it'll come up that often because Grixis isn't really good colors to be ramping in, and it really sucks if he gets killed in response. But I mean, it will end games, especially if they're going long.
Yeah, I like.
Yeah, so this is. Sorry, go ahead.
I like to collude with my opponents because colluding is fun, and you can go, wow, guys, let's make sure Kefka gets as little cards as possible.
Yeah, I was watching someone run this in like a CDH VOD, and people were like saying, "Oh, I'm going to discard an instant," or like, "Oh, I can only discard a land to this," or something like that. So the minigame aspect is fun.
What about you?
Yeah, I think it's interesting on this front side because I see a world where you play this and 4 out of 5 times all of your opponents go, well, I'm discarding a land. and they all look at each other and they discard their land and you get to draw 1 card, which doesn't feel great. But I really want this card to be good because I also adore Kefka. I think Final Fantasy VI is actually the best Final Fantasy. And I don't think that's that hot of a take anymore. But
no.
I wish the backside could be more relevant. We saw this same thing happen with Nicol Bolas the Ravager, which this card is very, very similar to, except the front side is not a threat. And so kind of the problem here is like, yeah, in Commander, you can get there sometimes because you're playing Grixis, so you can kind of set up the situation where your opponents are so devoid of resources that you can eventually just say, yep, there's nothing you can do. If maybe we've grinded it out till we're all sitting on 10, 11 mana, and I'm going to flip this with like a counter spell to back it up. But obviously, if you flip it, this card is absurd. If you
Yeah.
actually manage to flip it, then you just can loop this into so many things. But I like the front side. I think it plays well with Kefka. There's another Kefka card in the commander sets. I think it's Kefka Laughing Mad or Dancing Mad, something like that.
Yeah. Laughing Mad is also
Yeah,
a card sorcery or instant, I think.
yeah. I think Kefka's an awesome character. I like that Kefka got awesome art and a really cool card. I don't know if it's going to be that good because it does, in a lot of ways, kind of look like a worse Nicol Bolas the Ravager. But I have hopes for it because I want it to be good.
Yeah, I will say, so the trigger on enter or attack, it's enter or attack. He's like a Titan, I suppose. And it is also each player discards a card. So even if like your opponent's conspired just
you do get to discard. I did see that.
You can pitch something if you don't need it and then draw it. You can also get funky with it if you want to like put a bunch of like artifact creatures in your deck or something, so that you can check off 2 card types and get extra cards. That is a little cute, but I think cute is the best way to build it.
This is like a fun deck to run random card type cards. Like, this is the kind of deck where you just say like, you know what? It's not the best removal spell, but maybe I do run Nameless Inversion just to get that extra card type.
Go.
Maybe I run an enchantment land just so I can draw 2.
Exactly. I really like the idea of just having a bunch of mini game cards in a deck and just having like a Mario Party as your commander, which is probably what I'll do with this card. I was already thinking of doing it in Grixis colors with the original Abeka that just ends the turn, but I think this will be a lot better for it. So, yeah.
Alrighty. Next card is my card. This is Ambrosia Whiteheart. 1 and a white. Flash. When Ambrosia Whiteheart enters, you may return another permanent you control to its owner's hand. And then it has landfall. When a land you control enters, Ambrosia Whiteheart gets +1/+0 until end of turn. Now, I like this card because I'm a dirty little Esper Pixie enjoyer, and I am evil like that.
Yeah, it's really odd that they just keep printing like bounce something to hand cards. Like, they really want to make this archetype work, and clearly it has been in standard. Esper Pixies is irritating, and also very good. I think notable for this is there are cards very similar to this. Sun Main Lion. We were talking about it before we started.
So White Main Lion is the originator of this effect. So White Main Lion was the 2-mana 2/2 from, it was one of the Time Spiral sets. It might have literally been Time Spiral, but so the thing about White Main Lion was it didn't let you not bounce something, which is something they've moved away from moving forward to give you that flexibility. But the fact was that White Main Lion not letting you choose to not bounce something didn't stop it from being an incredibly powerful card. And so whenever I see new variants on White Main Lion, I always think, oh, yep, that's a cool little role player. This is a fun card. Notably, something with this card, because it's legendary, you can't bounce 2 of them, which was a thing that some decks did with White Main Lion, because they were triggering like play a spell a turn effects and just looping White Main Lions and stuff. You can't do that with 2 Ambrosia Whitehearts because the legend rule will see that you have the same legend twice before you get to bounce. But besides that, it's a cool White Main Lion variant, and never sad to see more of them.
Yeah, and I think the fact that it's legendary does give it a little bit of extra like use cases versus some of the other versions of this effect. Because there's a bunch of stuff, especially in white, that tutors for legendary things. Thalia's Lancers, Sisay comes to mind.
I like.
This is a historic card.
I like Search for Glory.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Next is Jude's card.
No, incorrect.
This is actually my card.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. So this is Squall, Steed Mercenary, and there are a couple versions of Squall kicking around, but this one is, I think, going to be the one that is either going to be beloved or hated by many players. So this is our are 4 mana, white, black, 3/4, legendary human knight mercenary. And the text that actually matters on this card is that when Squall deals combat damage to a player, return target permanent card with mana value 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. Also, he can give himself double strike when he attacks alone, so he can do this twice. This card is going to be miserable in a stacks shell, and I think that's great. Look, it makes combat more relevant in a higher power table, and that's always, I think, important. You get a lot of like spell slinging ways. This is already a color combination that wants to be playing, Ghostly Prison, Rule of Law. My heart immediately goes to a Cheeky Contamination, which you can choose to sack on your turn if you want before combat, and then just get it back with Squall, and then you don't actually have to pay the upkeep cost for it. This is just
stacks.
Smokestack is Vanna value 4, so you can't get Smokestack back with Squall, but you can get everything underneath Smokestack back, and that's the beauty of it. This card is going to get back so many annoying little hate pieces. You can get back, Sphere Resistance. You can get back Winter Orb. You can do some wonderful things. And there are going to be people that love this card. I'm going to be one of them, and there are going to be people who hate this card. And that's not going to be me. I'm going to be that sick little monster who goes, all right, first trigger, get back, Sphere Resistance. Second trigger, get back Winter Orb, pass turn. Like,
I've never hated stacks. What about you,
I get
Jude?
I'm pretty stacks mixed. Every once in a while, they'll come out with a new Orzhov legend. Usually in Universes Beyond, which is weird. That'll make me consider building Hate Bears, but I've yet to succumb to that. This would be a good candidate, of course, and then the other one that comes to mind is McCready from the Fallout sets, the one that gives all your little guys.
Oh yeah.
But I mainly think it's going to be funny to see a lot of people put this in Ishin and then realize that it's better than the Commander. And yeah, this just looks like Commander Luris. And that.
I just realized something. You can get 9 lives and Solemnity immediately with this.
Oh dear.
You can get Solemnity plus Phyrexian Unlife with this.
Oh yeah,
you can do a lot.
We're cooking.
Yep.
We're cooking with 9 lives, a card that has never been broken ever in history of Magic.
I mean, I just
never, not once.
I feel bad for all the people who are just like, yeah, I really like Final Fantasy VIII, and I want to run my favorite guy from it, Squall, who then won't understand why their commander is immediately getting killed every time he comes out. And they just have
this is where you gotta have your rule 0 conversation. You gotta tell people like, no, this is a normal aggro deck. I'm basically playing it like non-combo Alacia. Alacia smiles to death. Like, I'm just gonna do it the fun way, whatever. You just gotta tell people that, because otherwise, it's only gonna take one game against Stacks Squall.
Yeah,
Squacks, if you will.
The problem, Lucy. I have trust issues.
Squacks.
Well, that's a you issue.
I think it's a large majority of the player base issue, actually.
I've learned not to trust. That's why I make it so that only I play the cards, and that's fine.
There you go. Right. Okay. Here's my card that I picked. Another Orzhov legend, if you'd believe it. Hildebrand Manderville. And before we get more into it, I just want to talk about the names in Final Fantasy XIV, especially, by and large, are some of the worst names in a fantasy series that I think I've ever seen. I get why. It's partially because they're all fantasy French, which is never a good starting point. And then the other issue is that they have, 13, by which I mean at least 20 other Final Fantasy games they can't really have name overlap from. So you got to get creative with it, and that's how you wind up with a character named like Estinian or something. I'm sorry, I just hate the names from this game so much. Anyways, Hildebrand Manderville is a 1 and a white legendary human detective. He's a 2/2. With creature tokens you control, get +1/+1. And he also has an adventure named Gentleman's Rise, which is a banger card name. 2 and a black for an instant adventure. Create a 2/2 black zombie creature token. And he also has the Mosswood Dread Knight text of when Hildebrand Manderville dies, you may cast it from your graveyard as an adventure until the end of your next turn. So he's got a graveyard recursion ability. He makes bodies instead of drawing you cards, and his adventure costs a little bit more than Mosswood Dread Knights, but it is also an instant, which gives you some extra flexibility, in addition to just being in different colors. And like, for the past couple of years, from what I understand, which is not the most, I'll freely admit, Golgari, like aggro or mid range in standard, has pretty much just been, on the weathered back of Mosswood Dread Knight and Glitha. So all I'm saying is if there's one other good Orzhov card in standard, I think Orzhov Tokens is a viable deck can run with this funny guy. Time will only tell if it's actually as good as Mosswood Dread Knight, but I think it probably is, and I'm definitely going to run this in Commander as well.
I definitely.
Question. So is this in the main set?
Let me. I forget. It might not be.
I see the Chocobo symbol.
Oh,
I think the Chocobo symbol is actually for Commander.
Okay, well, forget everything I said about
standard
or in standard, but I run Mosswood Dread Knight Commander decks, and I think it's pretty good there. Mosswood is probably better in a Commander context because drawing cards is good, but I think this guy is solid.
So let me make a further defense for this card, because I also think this card's pretty cool. It's not the most incredible card in the world, but it's a recursive. Oh God, what is the name of the card? I'm completely blanking on it. The token, anthem from Innistrad.
Intangible Virtue.
Thank you. It's Intangible Virtue. It's a recurable Intangible Virtue that also makes tokens.
Yeah,
and that's fine. That's good enough. He also makes an incredible zombie token. If I was still running decks that made zombie tokens, this would be my new zombie token of choice. I think this token is incredible.
I will say
I used to be a Scars fan.
It's very funny.
I will say I love this card too, guys. I'm not gonna trash on this card because I love it. It's an engine. It's a payoff. It can be recurred, so it's a great blocker, and I like aristocrats as well. And it's just every piece of the puzzle that you want.
Yep.
I wish it was standard legal though. It's kind of sad. Makes me sad that it's not.
Yeah, a little bit, but oh well. Mosswood Dread Knight will be there for at least until next year, I think. Actually, no wait, it might rotate out with Edge of it. No, it won't. I don't think. Yeah. Glissa leaves, though.
I honestly don't even know what's going to rotate out anymore.
Yeah.
Besides Shieldred.
All right. Now it's my turn to pick a card. And I picked Blam, Garden Seed Academy. It's a land. This land enters tapped. You can tap it for green or blue. And then you can tap 5 green, blue, transform this land. This ability costs 1 less for each other town you control. And it transforms into Blam, Garden Airborne, and it has flying. Whenever Blam Garden attacks, draw 1, and it has crew 1 because it's a vehicle. Now, I think a lot of the adventure lands, especially, are actually maybe playable in certain formats, especially in Commander, especially the black one and I think it's the red one, maybe? Yeah, the black one and the red one.
Yeah, those are the 2 ones with the cheapest adventures. So
yeah, and I think a lot of those town lands are sort of things that you might already want to jam in your deck. So maybe you can also run Blam as a payoff for all those towns that you're running.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even think you need to be worried about putting a bunch of towns into your deck for this to be good. It's just like a sideways man land, and this is a pretty above rate one, I would say. So yeah, if you're in blue-green, this seems like a pretty good thing to just be able to chuck into your deck if you want a little more action from your mana base.
Yeah, I don't know if it's above rate, because if you're not running towns, this is
Yeah, I guess
7
it is
mana to
8.
flip it.
Practically 8.
Yeah, eight mana because it takes itself. Yes, yeah. I do like this card in theory. I could see maybe some kind of cute control shell that is already wanting to be running blue. Blue green's already got such powerful cards. You might as well. And then you just kind of flip this to be a bit of a value engine that also can end the game in a couple of hits. You obviously need something to crew it, but I think nowadays there's enough just good creatures that control decks want to be either making through tokens or just playing haphazardly that you can crew this. This is cute in Commander. I think Commander, you definitely want to be running a couple other towns if you're going to be putting this in your deck anyway. But yeah, no, it's totally fine. Obviously, if you flip it, then a 5/4 flyer that crews for 1 and draws a card is great. It's going to feel rough if it eats a removal spell before it gets at least 1 attack in. But I think as long as you get 1 attack in, you're probably happy with it still.
Yeah. You can transform it at instant speed, which especially is useful for control. So
yeah, you definitely need to end to turn this if you because it also taps itself. It doesn't remove itself from play. So if you activate this to transform it, you will get a tapped Balam Garden until your next untap step.
Yeah.
All right. Next is whoever's next.
Well, I love my graveyards. So this is Diamond Weapon. This is an uncommon from the main set. And so Diamond Weapon is 7 green for a legendary artifact creature elemental 8/8. Costs 1 less for each permanent card in your graveyard. Has reach, and it's got immune, so you prevent all combat damage that would be dealt to Diamond Weapon. So I remember when they spoiled a card called Molder Hulk back in Guilds of Ravnica. And Molder Hulk was playing off the undergrowth mechanic where it costs 1 less for every creature in your graveyard. And when you played it, you got to get a land back from your graveyard if you wanted. And it was like 7 black green or something like that. It was very expensive. And people tried to make it work because it turns out, in older formats, as we've discussed before, it's not that hard to get a bunch of cards in your graveyard. And creature is a relatively easy type. Well, Molder Hulk was not quite good enough. Turns out getting specifically creatures is really annoying. Creatures are usually the thing you want to be getting out of your yard the most. The fact that this is permanent, I think, is actually super relevant. It is not that hard to mill 7 permanents into your graveyard and get an 8/8 that's immune to all combat damage for 2 green. I think this is something that would be worth testing in that kind of shell. You usually don't want more than 1 or 2 of these if you're going to go for that type of style. But I think this is something that, because it says permanent and not creature, is going to be a lot easier to cast than people think. The fact that every fetch land in formats that have fetch lands counts towards reducing its cost. The fact that if you mill over any random, so let's go with some older variants of dredge. So I'm thinking of like fetch lands, you get shriek horns, you get creatures. Any of those all reduces cost by 1. This is going to be very easy to cast for double green.
I will also say that a lot of decks nowadays are also playing surveil lands as well. And so you can fetch and then surveil, so that's 2 off of 1 card.
Yeah.
Potentially, if you don't want to keep the thing you surveil, and if the thing you surveil is a permanent, but that'll happen a lot of the time.
If your deck's designed to cast this card, you're probably putting whatever you surveil into the graveyard.
Yeah.
Not always, but if you're playing a deck that wants to cast this for 2 green at any reasonable speed, you're probably milling almost anything that's a permanent.
Yup.
Alrighty.
Yeah. I will say we have come a long way since Molder Hulk.
We have.
I think this has one of the same problems as Molder Hulk, though, in that it's a really big, stupid creature with no evasion whatsoever. So it can just get jump blocked all day, especially in Commander. But if you have a workaround...
Oh, we're not playing this in Commander.
Okay. I mean, I was actually
If
kind
you
of
play as a commander, I'm going to laugh at you. I'm sorry, I'm going to laugh at you. It's a big dumb creature.
If you're
right.
playing this in Commander, I think you are like a noble, virtuous soul, and I wish nothing but the best. However, I will be chump blocking this until the cows come home.
Yeah.
And brother, they're at the burger place.
I want to slap this sucker next to blood gas, prize amalgams, and narcomoebas. Like this
There
is
you go.
this is just gonna be. You know what? It's like turns out Hogak broken. Well, maybe if we can just put a dumb 8/8 into play really early, that's probably good enough. Because the thing is about big dumb creatures aren't great, but big dumb creatures that come down way earlier than they're supposed to, still pretty solid. Turns out. I don't love that it's an artifact creature. Honestly, that's like one of my biggest complaints about it. Not in like flavor, like obviously it's diamond weapon. It is what it is. But the fact that if you were to try to do something like that, then technically it's now exposed to artifact hate as well. But realistically, if they're able to kill your creatures already, the fact that this is an artifact is probably irrelevant.
Yeah, I think this getting abraded isn't a huge deal.
I like the fact
they've abraded my diamond weapon.
Your diamond weapon can also jump for days because it prevents all combat damage. So it can block those 20/20s all day long.
It's true.
This blocks Murktide region, and that's hilarious. Like,
that is pretty funny. Yeah.
What is the Dragon Rage channeler gonna do if you manage to? Because realistically, the thing is, you're running so many permanents in that type of deck. If you get a really good turn 1 now with Faceless Looting unbanned, you can probably turn 2 a diamond weapon, at least turn 3. If you do that, I think it's really funny. The fact that this blocks Dragon Rage Channeler and Murktide Regent, like they just don't matter anymore. I don't know if it's good enough. That's kind of like the beauty of all cards that are hypothetically good in some weird dredgy shell, is that they're all hypothetically good, and then you test them, and they're either not good enough, which makes them atrocious, or they are the best things in sliced bread.
Yeah,
there's no gap in between.
The Hogak comparison just makes me read this card as green. If you have an Altar of Dimension, play mill 8, which not bad.
I mean, I don't think that we're going to be doing that for a lot of reasons, but yeah, I've been known to run an Altar of Dementia or 2 in my day. I love to see it. Yeah, sure.
Next is Jude's card.
Yeah, and I believe this is our last card of the video. So I've selected Freya Crescent, who is for a single red mana, a legendary rat knight. She's a 1/1. She has jump during your turn. Freya Crescent has flying, and she can tap to add red, spend this mana only to cast an equipment spell or activate an equip ability. So I think that this is really interesting in Commander for play pattern reasons primarily. I'm envisioning a deck where you always drop Freya turn 1 and are aiming to drop a 3-mana equipment on turn 2 99% of the time, and you might say, okay, big deal. But there's a lot of like really good equipment at 3 mana. Reaver Cleaver, all of the swords of that entire super cycle. I think Blackblade is 3 mana, and if it's not, then it's 2 mana, so big whoop. You can also play this with stuff like Living Weapon, for Mirrodin, reconfigure cards, the new job select. So I just think this would be a really interesting Voltron commander. The fact that it can have flying during your turn also helps a lot, because you're already working with some evasion, so you don't necessarily need to focus on that. I don't think it would be great, but I do think it would be interesting to play. And that is important for a Voltron deck, in my opinion, because they don't seem the most interesting to pilot a lot of the time.
I think this is amazing in the 99 of Voltron decks, because not all Voltron decks are running green, and therefore not all Voltron decks are able to run 1-mana ramp spells, even though that some of them want to run 1-mana ramp spells, because there's not a lot of stuff to do on turn 1 always. And so just having this as a turn 1 play can be kind of nice.
Yeah, I like this card in theory. I think it's one of those cards where I could see it having a role in like a more aggressive constructed deck where you can have 4 of them, so you're more likely to get it on turn 1 if it's not a commander. Where I do expect to see this card is people are going to say, oh, well, I just want to do something silly with these 7 other remaining people in the MTG Brawl arena queue. Where they're going to play all of the swords of blah, blah, blah. They're going to play all of the crazy equipment, and they're just going to put this at the head. And people are going to be like, well, how bad can a 1-mana dork be? And then the first time they see this go turn 1, Freya, turn 2, Sword of blank your deck, whatever color combination that happens to be. And then they're going to slap it on her next turn and start slapping on other things. They're going to put out the stupid, what's the letter opener from Dragons of Tarkir that's currently rampaging? Yeah, Corey Steelcutter.
Corey Steelcutter.
You're just going to put dumb stuff like that, and you're going to go, how bad can this rat be? And then she's going to hit you for like 9 on turn 3 and just absolutely obliterate you. And then what's going to happen is you're going to see that, and then you're also going to have games where you play Freya turn 1, and they, just kill your 1-mana 1/1.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh, well, my deck doesn't do anything unless Freya's in play. And so turn 3, you tap out and you play Freya again, and they kill her again. As someone who's played Stram Voltron, that's the experience, and this just doesn't replace cards.
Yeah.
So I love the idea of it. And this is not me saying that it's a bad card. I think this card can see play, and I want it to see play. I just, if you're thinking about running it as a cheeky little brawl deck, I think that's a fun idea. I think it's fun as a commander deck, though it runs into that issue even more, arguably, of people see it go off once and they go, well, what if we just kill the rat? What if,
how many commander players are running turn 1 removal? Like, if this gets swords to plowshares, I think I feel pretty good about that, maybe?
Yeah. No, they'll swords it in response to your first equip.
I mean, that's
what they'll do.
I guess that.
Maybe not swords, but like, I don't know. I'd tragic slip this. If this is your whole deck, I'd tragic slip it.
Lucy, I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news. I think you are one of like 14 people on Earth that are running tragic slip.
Who run interaction?
That run that card specifically. I think more people run interaction than people give the format credit for. It's just like they're usually not running enough of it. And certainly not tragic slip ball cards. Not hating on it.
See.
I love Tragic Slip. It needs to be running more commander decks.
It's funny.
It's really easy to get one creature to die, it turns out. Especially if you're the one sacking creatures. But you don't even need to do that to kill Freya, because she's a 1/1.
This is true.
I'm gonna walking ballista Freya down, and it's gonna be hilarious.
Okay, that would.
You're like, I want to replay my commander and be like, all right, on my turn, I'm gonna put a counter on walking ballista and pass.
What's the MDFC that deals 1 damage?
Spike
Field Hazard. If you Spike Field Hazard of Freya, you are my hero. That is so toxic. The only thing that could be better than that is if someone brings this to your table and they go to cast Freya turn 1 and you mental misstep it. First of all, ridiculous that you're playing mental misstep, but I have seen it before.
I thought you were going to say
if you do that. I mean, Gutshot. Look, if you're running Gutshot, then sure, Gutshot Freya. Why not?
That would be pretty high.
Way to deal. You know what? If you're running Playful Shove in your commander deck, then please let us know when you kill a Freya with Playful Shove and how quickly the game devolves into either laughter or people leaving the store.
All right, guys. I think that's all of the funny jokes we have to make today. Everybody sign off. June?
Bye-bye. Go play Deltarune if you haven't already. It's really good.
Lucy?
Don't deck and drive.
And I'm going to also say play Deltarune because Jude is right. Thank you guys for watching.
Yeah.